Emma's mornings were a relentless race against time. As a marketing executive, she moved from meeting to meeting, barely pausing to breathe. Coffee was just fuel, grabbed quickly from chain shops where the lines moved faster than her thoughts. One morning, running later than usual, she ducked into a small cafe she had never noticed before. It was quieter than the bustling places she usually visited. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air, and behind the counter stood an older man with a calm demeanor. "Large black coffee to go," Emma said, her phone already in hand. The man nodded but moved with unhurried precision. He poured the coffee slowly and placed the cup in front of her. "You seem worn out," he said gently. Emma laughed dryly. "Isn't that just life?" He tilted his head thoughtfully. "Not for everyone. Some choose a different pace." Her brow furrowed, but she shrugged, paid, and walked out. As the coffee warmed her hands, his words lingered. A different pace? What did that even mean? The next day, Emma returned to the cafe. Something about the quiet space and the older man's deliberate movements pulled her in. Joe, as his name tag revealed, always moved as if time were his ally rather than his enemy. At first, Emma felt impatient watching him, but soon she noticed the effect his calm had on the room. It wasn't just coffee he served, it was peace. One morning, as he handed her a cup, he asked, "Do you like your own company?" Her response came quickly, "I'm too busy to think about that." Joe smiled faintly. "Maybe that's something to think about." That night, her apartment felt unusually quiet. She stared at her phone, scrolling mindlessly, but the question refused to fade. Did she like her own company? The truth was, she couldn't remember the last time she had paused long enough to even consider it. The following day, she asked Joe, "Why do you ask those kinds of questions?" He poured her coffee with his usual precision. "Because we rush through life like it's a race," he said. "But life's meant to be tasted, not gulped." Over the weeks, Joe's gentle inquiries began to stir something in Emma. He asked questions she couldn't ignore. "What's one thing you'd regret not doing today? Who do you wish you spoke to more often? If your job wasn't part of your life, who would you be?" These thoughts followed her, not just through her mornings, but into the quieter corners of her day. She called her sister, whom she hadn't spoken to in years. She stopped rushing through her evenings and started savoring moments, reading a book, walking in the park, even just sitting with her coffee and letting her mind wander. Then one morning, Joe wasn't behind the counter. A younger barista handed her coffee and a folded note. "Joe said this was for you," the barista said. Emma unfolded the paper with a strange sense of anticipation. "Emma, it's time for me to move closer to my daughter and grandkids. Thank you for being part of my mornings. Keep asking the big questions, and remember, taste the coffee, don't rush it. Warmly, Joe." She sat in the cafe for the first time, looking at the now empty chair behind the counter. A quiet ache settled in her chest. It wasn't just a barista she had lost. It felt as though she had said goodbye to an anchor. Months later, Emma opened her own cafe in a quiet neighborhood. Inspired by Joe, she decided her place would be more than a stop for caffeine. She wanted it to be a pause in people's hurried lives. Every coffee cup had a message printed on its lid. "What's one moment you'll savor today?" At first, she wasn't sure if anyone noticed the question. Most customers were like she had once been, preoccupied, moving too quickly to pay attention. But slowly she began to see small changes. One morning, a woman in a business suit glanced at the lid as she stirred her coffee. She paused, reading the words carefully. Then, with an almost imperceptible smile, she looked up at Emma and gave a small nod of thanks. Another day, a young man stopped after his first sip, staring out the window, as if seeing something he hadn't noticed before. When his gaze met Emma's, he raised the cup slightly in acknowledgement. These moments were brief, but powerful. Each time it happened, Emma felt a quiet satisfaction. It wasn't about the coffee. It was about the connection, the reminder to savor life's little joys. Late one evening, as Emma cleaned the counter, she thought of Joe. His deliberate way of pouring coffee, his thoughtful questions, and his steady presence had changed her life. She hoped, in her small way, she was doing the same for others. As she switched off the lights and locked the door, she whispered to the empty cafe, "Thank you, Joe." The next morning, she opened the cafe early, eager to start another day of serving more than just coffee. She was serving moments worth savoring.